Hey
So
Scott,
go ahead.
time for one last question, just about your
Sure.
debate with Bill Kristol. I
Yeah.
had a couple people ask me, and I was actually a little curious about this myself. If you were at all maybe disappointed with Bill Kristol's lack of performance.
I mean, a little bit, but I mean, that was what I was somewhat what I was expecting. I mean, I did not expect him to have a written statement. I expected him to just have kind of some notes and to wing it, and that he was going to basically do the glitter and generalities and the very easy summary that America's kept the peace in the world for 75 years, and who could argue with that? And that was what he was going to say. And I was willing to bet, although I didn't bet everything on it or anything, but I was willing to bet that he had not even bothered to Google me or find out, who he's dealing with up there or whatever. And so then that was my attitude was, look, this guy's so arrogant. He's not going to be prepared. He's going to get up there and say the same thing he always does. And then I guess my problem was my next step from there was I was worried about how he was going to respond to me explaining the real history of the last 20 years here, or even the last 40, and what a disaster it's all been, all these things that he supported. And I thought, the structure of the thing is it's an hour and a half. So after like the first 35, 40 minutes of our opening statements, and we still got an hour to scrap up there. And I thought, things could really devolve to the point where, like, maybe if I get him too upset and too on guard, he's going to start calling me an anti-Semite. And then how am I going to respond to that? And, that kind of thing. So it didn't go off the rails that way. That was my fear. I guess my fear was that even though I was trying to go easy on him, I really was not trying to make it all personal, whatever. But I knew that my case is sound and that it's thorough and that he wouldn't really be able to refute it, and he wouldn't be able to just dismiss it either, because it's so detailed and it's, factual, and even like in drawing the connections between the different policies and all of these things. Um, he tried to just remain really aloof and be like, well, you think that, but that's no big deal. But it was like, it kind of is a big deal. And I don't think that his aloof attitude really carried the day like it usually does. Usually he's up against like a code pink lady going, you're a war criminal. And he's just like, well, you're impolite and I'm a gentleman, blah, blah, blah. And he did actually try to pull that on me. Oh, you're violating the rules of the debate, making this personal, because I was accusing him of making money and stuff like that, which was true. But at the same time, though, this guy's not just a professor down at the university or like some guy who's a right-wing media guy that I disagree with. He's the founder of PNAC. He's the leader of the Axis of Crystal. He launched that goddamn war of other than people inside the Bush government and the Pentagon and the vice president's office. But in terms of people outside the government, he did more than any other man in this country to get us into that war, more than Krauthammer or any of the guys at the think tanks. He was the most important one of all of them, leading at the Weekly Standard as editor of the Weekly Standard and leader of PNAC and all of those things. So there was a bit of accountability. I had to, like, I don't know, at least say something. But I didn't really expect too much better. In fact, I guess I'm relieved because I expected worse is really the answer to your question. I was afraid that he was going to call me an anti-Semite. Then I had a funny line about how Israel has no worse friends than their own Likud party and their loyalists in the United States. And look at the trap that you guys, the pit that you've dug Israel into now. Where, yeah, you got to keep the West Bank, but it's this giant albatross around your neck because it comes with 6 million people you despise but can't get rid of. And so now what are you going to do? Now you're living literally under apartheid, according to Ehud Barak and Ehud Olmert. So, and, Olmert was Kadima party. He was a break off of Likud. This is Netanyahu's former colleague in the Likud party. Said, yeah, this is apartheid. It's really bad. Yeah, I know. So, in other words, there's nobody worse for Israel than Likud. And for that matter, Kadima. Olmert could have given up the West Bank and the Gaza Strip. I distinctly remember him not doing that. He was in power for many years, too. Forget how long, 6, 7 years, something like that. So that was going to be my answer. If he started like trying to smear me or whatever, I was going to stick up for the Jews, protect them from Bill Kristol.
Um,
you know,
well, I thought I don't know if this was intentional on your part or not, but I think you said like did like the Holocaust comparison is just like the 6 million number, that many people have died, and then he did like kind of go after and try to hit on that, and I thought the way you refuted that was probably the most brilliant way to do it in that setting with, you know, Bill Kristol being your opposition. And so yeah, I thought that was handled like pretty brilliantly. I honestly thought he was going to like have at least something a little bit more crafty. Maybe this is just because like I was on the debate team in high school and college, and like I lost debates to people who like were dumber than me, that definitely who didn't understand the topic as well as me, because they were able to like kind of like, you know, pitch something kind of crafty or just, you know, speak like better. But I mean, he had given up by the end. He didn't even stand up for his closing statement, which was at least as much of a rule breaker as you bringing up new arguments in the end. So I feel like that was pretty much a wash anyways. But I don't know,
I
Scott,
love his body language was just priceless through, especially like at the end where he's just slumped.
Yep.
Like, and then Jack Kennedy slumped. Yeah, he slumped. And he's like, he starts putting his mask on. He's like, takes it off. But he puts the mask back on. Like, to me, like, he's just hiding, right? He's like, subconsciously, he's like, I gotta get the hell out of here, you know, kind of.
Yeah, that was kind of like he was like trying to get that thing over with. I think like 4 or 5 minutes into your opening statement, he just realized that he was beat, so he didn't really have anything to say. But Scott, thanks so much for doing that. That was I feel like the entire like anti-war community like had like a just a great moment there, because you know, for all these years we've all been saying like, hey, put us on the stage with any one of those guys and it's going to be an absolute, you know, destruction. It's going to be like, you know, an hour and a half of Ron Paul beating up Rudy Giuliani for a minute and a half, right? And that's exactly what we got. So I mean,
cool.
it was.
Well, I'm
it
glad
was
you're
awesome.
not disappointed. I was really worried that people were going to be. I mean, I knew I wasn't going to lose the thing, but I did think it might be a lot closer to a draw, and that you guys would be like, "Hey, you did pretty good, dude." You know what I mean?
Right.
And I'd be like, "Oh, I'm sorry, dude. I let y'all down." But and I should apologize because there were quite a few things that he said that were total BS that I just didn't have time to refute or presence of mind to refute, especially the sarin gas attack stuff and a few other things. One thing I really wish I'd said, he's bragging about nobody's used nuclear weapons in anger since World War II. And I didn't say, yeah, it was America that used nuclear weapons and destroyed 2 entire cities with them. Nobody else has ever done that except the USA as it was making its fatal turn to world empire, you know, coincidentally enough. So I wish I had said that. There were a couple other points, but overall, I guess I'm just, you know, for 2 years, this was a thing coming up in the future. So now it's in the past and I can do something else and worry about something else. But in fact, as soon as it was over, I had to buckle down on all my jokes for the Tom Woods thing in Orlando last weekend. I was like, man, I gotta, like, I have right now, I swear, like, literally, I have 2 full weeks of emails to catch up on because I've just been working on my jokes, which I guess you'll have to be the judge later when the video comes out of what you think of that. But I think they laughed. If I remember right, they laughed.
All right, I'll let you know, Scott.